8. LaShaun Harris, a mother lost in the shadows of schizophrenia. Early life and background of LaShaun Harris. LaShaun Harris was born in the early 1970s and raised in Oakland, California. From the outside, her early life appeared ordinary, but by her mid-20s, cracks began to form. She had 3 sons and lived in public housing while receiving disability assistance. Neighbors describe her as quiet and often reserved. But over time, Harris became deeply affected by mental illness, specifically schizophrenia. She experienced delusions, hallucinations, and religious obsessions that grew more pronounced over the years. Despite signs of severe instability, LaShaun tried to maintain custody of her 3 boys, Trayshawn 6, Tarana 2, and Joshua 1. Her journey, however, would soon take a tragic and irreversible turn. Struggles with schizophrenia and the warning signs. LaShaun Harris was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Her condition involved intense delusions, many of them religious. She believed she could speak directly to God and often told others she was chosen for a divine mission. Family members and social workers noticed her mental state declining rapidly. She would sometimes say bizarre things, like that God wanted her to give up her children. She once even claimed that demons were trying to possess her sons. These were red flags, but in a social services system often overwhelmed and underfunded, they were not treated as imminent threats. LaShaun had been involuntarily hospitalized multiple times under California's 5150 law, which allows mental health holds for those deemed a danger to themselves or others. But each time, she was released within days, often without long-term treatment or follow-up care. Custody battles and systemic failures. In 2004 and early 2005, LaShaun lost custody of her children due to concerns about her mental stability. They were temporarily placed in the care of her mother, who raised alarm bells about LaShaun's ability to parent safely. However, later that year, LaShaun regained unsupervised access to her sons, despite protests from her family and growing instability. In the weeks leading up to the tragedy, Harris showed several signs of distress. She told her caseworker she had stopped taking her medication because God had healed her. She also reportedly said she had a special calling that involved her children. These warnings, unfortunately, were not acted upon decisively enough to prevent disaster. The tragedy at Pier 7, October 19, 2005. On October 19, 2005, LaShaun Harris boarded a Bay Area rapid transit BART train in Oakland with her 3 sons. She wore a hospital gown under her clothes and carried a plastic bag with diapers and a Bible. Witnesses describe her as talking to herself, appearing disoriented. She arrived at Pier 7, a popular San Francisco tourist spot along the Embarcadero. There, at the water's edge, Harris began undressing her children. Several people on the pier noticed her acting strangely, but didn't intervene. What happened next remains one of the most horrifying crimes in recent California history. LaShaun lifted her 3 children, one by one, and dropped them into the frigid waters of San Francisco Bay. She believed God had commanded her to do it. In her mind, she wasn't killing her children. She was sending them to God. Bystanders noticed too late. Some reported seeing her mumble prayers. Another said she stood calmly after the act. LaShaun later walked away from the pier and eventually confessed to police. She calmly told officers, "I just drowned my babies." Immediate response and the public reaction. The police launched a frantic search operation. The Coast Guard combed the waters. Divers were brought in. Within hours, the body of 6-year-old Trayshawn was recovered near the pier. The younger 2 boys, Joshua and Taranta, were never found, believed to have been swept out to sea. Public reaction was a mix of horror, confusion, and grief. News outlets covered the story nationwide, with many drawing parallels to Andrea Yates, who had drowned her 5 children just 4 years earlier. But this case had another layer. LaShaun Harris was African American, poor, and suffering from untreated schizophrenia. Mental health advocates pointed out that the same safety net that had failed Yates had also failed Harris, only with even fewer resources available. People began to ask, how could a woman so clearly unwell be left to care for 3 children without supervision? Trial and the question of sanity. LaShaun Harris was arrested and charged with 3 counts of murder. But from the very beginning, her defense team argued that she was not criminally responsible due to mental illness. In 2007, her trial began in San Francisco. The prosecution acknowledged her schizophrenia, but claimed she still knew what she was doing. They argued that LaShaun was aware the act was wrong, but did it anyway. Her defense painted a clearer picture of delusional thinking, voices from God, and a total detachment from reality. Ultimately, the jury split the verdict. Harris was found guilty of second-degree murder, but also declared insane at the time of the act. Instead of prison, she was committed to Napa State Hospital, a secure psychiatric facility in California. She would remain there indefinitely, undergoing treatment in hopes of eventual rehabilitation. But as of now, she has not been released and may remain institutionalized for the rest of her life. Reflection, mental health awareness, and the children remembered. The tragedy of LaShaun Harris raises haunting questions about how society handles severe mental illness, especially in marginalized communities. Her case exposed critical flaws in how mental health services are distributed and monitored. California's mental health infrastructure, like much of the U.S., was and still is under immense pressure. LaShaun fell through the cracks repeatedly, from child welfare services, psychiatric institutions, and public housing support. Could this have been prevented? Many experts believe yes. If her medication had been enforced, if more consistent psychiatric care had been provided, and if the custody system had better safeguards for children of severely mentally ill parents. Today, mental health advocacy groups use her story as a painful but necessary reminder of what happens when the system looks away. And let us not forget the children, Trayshawn, Taronta, and Joshua, whose young lives ended in confusion and sorrow. They were innocent, joyful boys whose memories deserve to be honored, not just as victims, but as reminders of the cost of societal neglect.